12 years after I buried my twin brother, a wedding invitation arrived, bearing my name. It turned my world upside down. The man I mourned might be alive and living as me. My name is Noah, and I'm 32 years old. My twin brother, supposedly, died in a car crash over a decade ago. But last month, a wedding invitation showed up addressed to me from him. It suggested I might have buried the wrong person. Before I dive into how this chilling message from the past plunged me into the most unsettling chapter of my life, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm curious to see how far this truth can reach. All began on a Wednesday. I remember because it was laundry day, and I just folded the last sock when a soft, hesitant knock echoed at my door. Nothing like the usual heavy thud from the delivery service. I opened it to find a plain brown envelope, no return address, just my name handwritten across the front. Inside, a single, elegant ivory card with gold foil lettering. You are cordially invited to the union of Nathan Carter and Emma Holloway. Saturday, May 14th, Holloway Family Vineyard, Sonoma, California. The card slipped from my fingers. My mouth went instantly dry. Nathan Carter, my twin brother, my best friend. The kid who could always finish my sentences, the man we'd laid to rest 12 years prior, after a fire so severe they could only identify the body through dental records. I had seen what remained, had stood at that funeral, trembling as his coffin was lowered into the earth. I had met my mother's vacant gaze as she whispered, "He's gone, Noah. You're the one who made it." And now he was sending me a wedding invitation. My first thought was denial, a prank, a cruel joke. But then I saw the handwriting. It wasn't just familiar. It was unmistakably his, the distinct leftward slant, those looping capital letters. He used to write our grocery list when we were kids, because my penmanship was too messy. That night, sleep was impossible. I sat at my kitchen table, the card before me, struggling to breathe, to comprehend the impossible. By sunrise, a single, cold, sharp thought cut through the fog. Either he never died, or someone has been living as him. Both possibilities pointed to one terrifying conclusion. My life might not truly be mine. To truly grasp the seismic shift this invitation caused in my reality, you need to understand Nathan, or perhaps who he had been. Nathan was the golden child, the twin who always seemed to stand 2 inches taller than me, even though we were the same height. He possessed a charisma that didn't just turn heads. It compelled people to follow him. Teachers adored him. Girls whispered his name. Adults spoke of him with a quiet certainty, saying, "He's going places," which always made me feel invisible by comparison. We shared a face, but never the spotlight. Mostly that was fine. I preferred being the quiet one. I gravitated towards numbers, systems, things that made logical sense. Nathan, on the other hand, thrived on chaos. He chased it like a sport. In college, he pursued political science, dreaming of a law career. I studied computer engineering, dreaming of a life where no one would ever bother me again. The last time I saw him alive, or what I believed to be the last time, we were 20. Sophomores on Thanksgiving break. He had this wild idea to drive home from UCLA instead of flying. "It'll be fun," he'd said. "Just you, me, and the open road." We never made it. Somewhere outside Bakersfield, just past midnight, he lost control. I remember headlights, a piercing screech, the sickening crunch of metal, then flames. I woke up in a hospital 2 days later, with cracked ribs, a fractured wrist, and a mind shrouded in fog. My parents were there, my mother weeping, my father looking as if his insides had been hollowed out. "There was nothing left, Noah," Dad had whispered. He was gone before the firefighters even arrived. I asked to see the body, but they refused. The coroner used dental records. The car was registered in Nathan's name. The body was in the driver's seat, and I was found unconscious on the passenger side. Every piece of evidence fit, so I accepted it. I grieved. I buried him, changed my major, transferred campuses, moved 3 states away. I changed everything except my face, because no matter how hard I tried, that still belonged to him too. The years passed quietly, built a life of solitude and control. I never spoke of Nathan, not to new friends, not to girlfriends, not even to therapists. It hurt too much. Deep down, I blamed myself. He wanted to drive. I let him. He always got his way. But now, I held proof that he'd never stopped getting his way. If Nathan was alive, what exactly had I buried? And worse, what had he taken with him when he vanished? I skipped work the next day. I sat on my couch, the wedding invitation still on the coffee table, and opened a box I'd kept hidden for years, a rusted green tin I'd sealed up during my last year of college. Inside, old photos, 2 hospital wristbands, a charred license, plate fragment, and a small black flash drive. Things I couldn't discard, yet couldn't bear to look at. There was one picture I'd almost forgotten, Nathan and me. 2 weeks before the crash, on the roof of our old apartment building. Sunset behind us, beers in hand, both of us grinning like fools. We were wearing each other's jackets. It sounds trivial, insignificant. But in that moment, staring at the photo, something clicked. A memory I hadn't accessed in over a decade began to surface, like a deep bruise pressed too hard. The car ride, the music blaring, Nathan laughing as we swapped jackets at a gas station because mine had a working zipper and his didn't. He'd pulled mine on. It's grinned and said, "If we crash, they'll ID me as you." We laughed. I remember that now. We'd laughed. God, suddenly. The passenger seat wasn't so certain. Suddenly, I couldn't recall which side of the car I'd been pulled from. The fire had obliterated everything: airbags, dashboard, steering wheels, seats. The coroner hadn't identified the body by its position. He'd used dental records and the name on the registration. Nathan's name, Nathan's car. But if he had my wallet, if we'd switched jackets, if he had planned it, no, that would mean he'd orchestrated the entire thing. That he wanted to disappear. That he needed a body, and somewhere between Bakersfield and the fire, he'd chosen me. To be that body, I felt nauseous. Stood too quickly, stumbled into the kitchen, and dry heaved into the sink. "You were never meant to wake up." The anonymous message echoed in my skull. What if I wasn't supposed to? What if 12 years ago, I was the one who died on paper, and Nathan simply stepped into my life while I was too broken to know better? My hand shaking, I opened my laptop and Googled the address on the wedding card. Holloway Family Vineyard, Sonoma, Northern California. A real place with a real booking under the name Noah Carter. Not Nathan me. He wasn't just alive. Why? He was me. The drive to Sonoma took 8 hours. I told no one I was going. Not that there was anyone left to tell. My close friends had faded away. I'd burned most of those bridges during my years of quiet retreat, slowly withdrawing until people stopped knocking, which, in hindsight, was exactly what Nathan would have wanted. I drove north, fueled by caffeine, paranoia, and the wedding. Invitation on the passenger seat, mocking me with every mile. I didn't know what I expected to find. Prank? A man who coincidentally shared my name and face? Some long-lost cousin with delusions? But deep down, I already knew. The vineyard sat at the edge of a sleepy valley, all rolling green hills and polished silence. It looked like something from a luxury catalog, a whitewashed barn, lanterns strung. Across the courtyard, and a hand-carved wooden sign reading, "The Holloway Estate." I parked down the road, out of sight. From the fence line, I saw them. Guests, staff, chairs being arranged, flowers carried, and in the center, in a crisp navy blue suit, his back to me. Him. I'd recognize that posture anywhere. Shoulders slightly crooked, left hand always fiddling with them. Cuff. Even from this distance, the back of his head felt like a punch to the chest. Nathan, or rather Noah Carter, as the RSVP list would call him, was alive, thriving, laughing. Clinked glasses with the event planner, kissed a blonde. Woman on the cheek took a selfie with an older man I vaguely recognized from childhood. Photo's Emma's father. My legs went numb. It wasn't a prank. It wasn't a twisted misunderstanding. He had taken everything, and he was about to get married under my name. A few minutes later, I watched him get into a black SUV and drive off. I followed. He didn't go far, just a few miles down a private dirt road, tucked behind rows of grapevines, until he reached it. The farmhouse. I froze. I knew this house. It was ours. Our grandfather's old homestead, the same property he'd left in his will too. Only one grandchild, because I was the one who helped him fix the shutters every summer. I was the one who stayed in the hospital with him during his last months. Nathan never came. Yet the mailbox read Carter. There was a new fence, a fresh coat of paint, a satellite dish on the roof, a Tesla in the driveway. He'd moved in. He had claimed it, but the worst part, he'd made it look like home. My hands trembled as I turned the car around and drove back to town. I checked into a motel under a fake name and lay on the bed staring at the ceiling until night swallowed the windows. He hadn't just stolen my identity. He'd rewritten history, repurposed my childhood, erased me, and then slipped into the empty space as if I'd never existed. But the scariest part wasn't that he pulled it off. It was that no one had noticed. Not my parents, not our relatives, not the bank, not the government. They all accepted the version of the world where he was me and I was gone. Sleep. The motel mattress was too soft. The air smelled of bleach and mildew, and my brain wouldn't stop spinning. I kept picturing the farmhouse, the flowers on the windowsill, the hammock on the porch, the freshly mowed lawn. He wasn't hiding. He was living. Around 3:30 a.m., I got back in the car and drove toward the vineyard. Not to confront him, yet I needed to confirm something. I parked a few hundred feet from the farmhouse, where the woods grew thick. I stepped out, silent, adrenaline coursing. The moon hung low and heavy. Every step through the grass felt like trespassing across my own grave. There was a window on the second floor of Grandpa's old study, the room where he kept his safe. The one he swore held family secrets. I crept closer, staying low. The light was on, and through the slatted blinds, I saw me. It's not literally, but close enough to steal my breath. Nathan stood in front of a mirror, shirtless, his hair damp. He was practicing something, a speech, a toast. His lips moved, silent behind the glass. Then he paused, looked directly into the mirror, eyes locking with his own reflection, and grinned. But it wasn't my grin, not our grin. It was hollow. Artificial, a politician's smile sewn onto a predator's face. And in that moment, I realized something I hadn't wanted to admit for years. Nathan wasn't just pretending to be me. He was better at it than I ever was. I stumbled back into the woods, hand shaking. I didn't realize I was crying until my breath hitched. Who the hell was I? Had my whole life been a shadow of his? Placeholder for a more charming version of me to eventually step in and claim? The next morning, I did something I hadn't done in years. I logged into my old encrypted cloud drive, the one I'd stopped using after the accident. It held exactly one item in a folder titled, "If Something Happens to Me." I didn't remember creating it, but when I opened the file, my screen flickered to life, and Nathan's face appeared. Not a reflection, not a ghost of video. He looked younger, probably recorded just weeks, maybe even days before the crash. He sat in our dorm room, wearing my old hoodie, the camera pointed low. If you're watching this, I guess I got what I wanted. The grin, that same hollow, calculated grin. I always said life was wasted on the cautious. You were always cautious, Noah, always waiting for the light to turn green. Always letting people pass. I'm done waiting. I'm done playing a support act to your invisible rule following. He leaned forward, eyes piercing the screen. So, here's what's going to happen. I'm taking your name, your life, your future. You won't need it where you're going. And if you do wake up, if by some insane chance you crawl out of the wreckage, then I guess we'll see which version of you the world believes. Spoiler alert, it won't be you. The video ended. There's no timestamp, no metadata, just those words. I'm taking your life. I sank back into the motel chair, shaking, the plastic upholstery creaking under me. So, it was real. All of it. This wasn't an accident. It wasn't a mistaken identity. It was a long con, years in the making. He planned to erase me. For 12 years, it worked. But he made one mistake. He assumed I'd stay buried. The lawyer's office hadn't changed in 12 years, still tucked between a bakery and a dentist in downtown Petaluma. Still the same fading brass plaque on the door, Mir, Cohen, and Lutz Estate Law. I hadn't been here since Grandpa Carter's funeral. Back then, I was the quiet twin, the responsible one, the one who showed up in a wrinkled suit and didn't cry. Nathan hadn't shown up at all. Now I knew why. I sat in the waiting room, hat pulled low, sunglasses on, sweating through my shirt despite the AC. I was running on 3 hours of sleep and enough anxiety to kill a horse. When they finally called my name, my real name, it startled me. The woman who greeted me was young, mid-20s, polished. "Mr. Carter," we spoke on the phone. "I'm Elise. You said you were here to request access to your grandfather's estate." "File." I nodded, handing over my ID. She studied it for a moment, then smiled. "We actually still have the original paperwork on file. It's all digitized now, but the originals are archived." 15 minutes later, I was in a cold records room, holding a file folder that felt heavier than it looked. Inside, the will, signed, notarized, witnessed. To my grandson, Noah Carter, I bequeath the property located at 319 Westerly Road, including all land, structures, and contents therein. That part I remembered. What I didn't, what shocked me, was the next section, a transfer of ownership. Form filed 11 months after the accident, signed by Noah Carter, witnessed by a notary approved by the county clerk's office, except I didn't sign it. I was in a psych ward when this was filed, grappling with memory gaps, night terrors, and the crushing weight of believing my twin had died because of me. I couldn't have walked into a government office and transferred real estate if I'd wanted to, but Nathan could have. With my ID, my signature was forged. Maybe even a bribe to a notary friend, just a well-practiced lie, and a lot of confidence. God knows he had both. I flipped through the rest of the file. There it was again, a change of mailing address filed 6 weeks later from my old apartment. In San Diego to the farmhouse, he had been meticulous. He hadn't just stolen my inheritance. He'd made it look like I gave it to him. And because no one was watching, because no one had reason to doubt, he got away with it. I walked out of that office feeling like I'd been hit by a truck. It wasn't about the land or the house or even the money. It was the audacity of it. The total, surgical erasure of me from my own history. This was the moment I stopped hoping. For justice, I started planning revenge. I found her through Instagram, Emma Holloway, 30 years old, vintner's daughter. Her feed was a curated collection of vineyard sunsets, yoga poses, golden retrievers, and tastefully filtered brunches. She looked like every West Coast wedding Pinterest board brought to life. Perfect teeth, natural blonde, that specific confidence only inherited money can buy. She also looked genuinely happy, and all that happiness was built on a foundation of lies. I didn't know if she was complicit. I didn't know if she was just Nathan's next mark, but I needed to find out. So, I made a choice. I created a burner profile, a fake name Caden, a distant cousin of the Carter family. I messaged her, saying I'd be in town for the big day, and was dying to meet the bride-to-be. She replied within an hour, of course. "So nice to meet you, Caden. I'd love to grab coffee." Coffee turned into dinner. She made a reservation at a small bistro in Sonoma. Intimate, the kind of place with no prices on the menu. I wore a suit I hadn't touched in years. The same one I'd worn to Nathan's funeral. The irony wasn't lost on me. She was already there when I arrived, sipping white wine, scrolling her phone. She looked up as I approached, and her face lit up. "Caden," she said, standing to hug me. "Wow, you look just like Nathan. I mean, it's uncanny." I forced a tight smile. "Yeah, it runs in the family." We sat. She ordered oysters. I asked for water. For the next 30 minutes, I played the role of a charming, distant East Coast cousin, newly reconnected to the family tree. She talked a lot, how they met at a tech fundraiser in San Francisco, how Nathan worked in renewable energy consulting, a title vague enough to mean everything and nothing, how he was kind, driven, a little mysterious, how she'd never met his parents because they were estranged, How he only had one photo from his childhood because the house burned down. I nearly choked on my drink. He had erased everything, not just me, but our entire family history. He was a blank slate, custom-built for reinvention, and she had bought every word. You said you grew up near him? She asked, dabbing her lips. Did you know his twin? My throat tightened. I looked her dead in the eyes and said, yeah, I knew him. She smiled, dreamy. What was he like? Quiet, I said. Smarter than people gave him credit for. He always saw things coming, even when no one else did. She tilted her head. Sounds more like Nathan. I forced another smile. Maybe they weren't as different as we thought. We finished the meal. She hugged me again. You have to come to the rehearsal dinner. Nathan would be so thrilled. I said I'd think about it. As I walked back to my car, the air turned sharp and cold. My head buzzed with questions. Did she know? Or was she just another mask he wore? If she didn't know, what would happen when she found out? That night, I booked a second motel room. I opened my laptop and began writing everything down. Dates, names, files, accounts, the estate transfer, the Instagram screenshots, the video. Because if this story was going to explode, I needed to be the one holding the match. The message was simple. I know who you are. Meet me at the old rail bridge, 10 p.m. Tuesday. Come alone. You owe me that much. No name, no number. Just those. 4 lines bolded, mailed anonymously to his house. I chose the bridge on purpose. It was abandoned, halfway between our childhood home and the edge of nowhere. We used to go there as kids, skip rocks, smoke stolen cigarettes, scream into the trees like we were kings of the forgotten. He'd know I chose it. He'd know it wasn't random. And if he didn't show, fine. It meant he was scared. He did. I'd finally see him. Not through glass. Not from a distance. Face to face. I arrived early, parked a quarter-mile out, and hiked the rest under a waning moon. The bridge hadn't changed. Rusted metal rails, decades-old graffiti, that weird burned patch near the center where someone once tried to light a couch on fire. 10:07 p.m., a crunch behind me. I turned, and there he was. Nathan. Same face, same height, same shoulders, but older now, sharper, something colder around the eyes. He didn't flinch. Just stepped onto the bridge as if he belonged there more than I did. Well, he said, I was wondering how long it would take. My throat was dry. You knew I was alive? He tilted his head. Let's just say I planned for the possibility. I stared at him. Same voice, same smirk. But the man in front of me was not my brother. He was a construct, a version of Nathan who had practiced being me for over a decade. Why? I asked finally. Why this? Why me? He laughed a short, cruel sound. You really want the truth? I nodded. He walked forward slowly, step by step, the bridge creaking under us. You had everything lined up, he said. The scholarship, Grandpa's will, the good twin act, and you were too boring to do anything with it, he sneered. You were wasting it. You could have had your own life, I said. You didn't have to steal mine. He stopped inches away. Yours was better. There it was. No shame, no apology, just a clean, surgical confession. You crashed the car on purpose, I said. I switched wallets at the gas station, he replied calmly. You don't even remember? You were half asleep. And the body in the car? His smile faded just a fraction. I didn't kill anyone, if that's what you're asking, he said. The body was an unfortunate opportunity. Hitchhiker, drunk. I fell asleep in the back seat. The fire did the rest. My stomach churned. He had killed someone, just didn't want to call it that. You're a monster, I said quietly. No, he said. I'm a survivor. Then he stepped even closer. His voice lowered. And if you go to the cops, they'll see you as a paranoid man with no proof, no legal identity, no assets in your name, pointing a finger at a successful, tax-paying citizen with a beautiful fiancée and a house in wine country. He leaned, in just enough for his breath to hit my skin. Who do you think they'll believe? I didn't answer. I didn't have to. Because in my pocket was a pen, and clipped to my jacket under the collar was a microphone. Live recording, broadcasting to a backup drive in real time. He'd just confessed to identity theft, to arson, to cover up a death. And soon it would. All unravel. I stepped back, my hands steady, my voice calm. "This time, Nathan," I said, "you picked the wrong version of me." He stared at me. No smile now, just silence. Calculating. Then slowly, he turned and walked into the dark. I didn't go back to the motel. I drove straight to a law office 2 towns over. A friend of a friend, someone Sarah, my old college roommate, turned civil rights attorney, had once described as discreet and allergic to BS. His name was Greg. He was bald, grumpy, and brilliant. At 1:15 a.m., I stood in his driveway, eyes bloodshot, clutching a flash drive like a live grenade. He opened the door in pajamas. "You better be bleeding or rich," he muttered. "I have a confession tape," I said, "of a man who stole my identity and faked his death 12 years ago to woke him up." By morning, Greg had a plan. He'd file a civil suit first, wrongful identity appropriation, estate fraud, document forgery. It wouldn't be criminal yet, but it would freeze Nathan's assets, open discovery, and allow subpoenas. Once the court accepted the audio as evidence, it could be escalated. We were ready. I was ready. And then Nathan struck back. Not with a counterclaim, not with a lawyer, but with a warrant. I was at a gas station outside Sacramento when 2 sheriff deputies walked up behind me and said my name. The real one. Noah Carter. I froze. "Yes, you're under arrest." "What? For what?" They spoke slowly, as if I were too stupid to understand. "Credit card fraud, forgery, identity theft." I laughed out loud, thinking it was a joke. They didn't laugh back. They cuffed me in front of 3 customers and shoved me into the back of a cruiser. I screamed that it was a mistake, that I was the real Noah Carter. They told me to save it for the judge. It wasn't until I was booked, fingerprinted, and sitting in a holding cell that I realized Nathan had filed first. He'd gone to the police. He'd taken every file, every burner profile, every email I'd sent to Emma, every photo I'd taken of the house, and spun a story. A mentally unstable man, claiming to be his long-lost twin, harassing his fiancée. Fabricating evidence, trying to steal his house, his name, his life. He even had signed statements from neighbors who swore they saw me snooping around. Security footage from a grocery store showing me stalking Emma. Even screenshots of our dinner cropped and labeled unwanted contact. In 24 hours, he'd turned me from the victim into the villain. Greg got me out on bail. He looked pale when he handed me the court summons. "He's good," Greg said. "Sociopath good?" I stared at the paper, hearing in 6 days, civil and criminal. I had 1 shot to prove I was who I said. I was 1 chance to undo 12 years of rot. Because if I failed, I wouldn't just lose the case. I'd lose my name again. I hadn't spoken to my parents in almost 9 years. Not after I changed states, changed jobs, changed numbers. Sent holiday cards for the first few years. They stopped replying after the 3rd. Maybe they thought I was grieving too loudly. Maybe they didn't like being reminded which twin was left. I'd convinced myself they didn't matter anymore, that they were part of a past I had outgrown. But now, I needed them. Because Greg was right. In court, facts matter. There is no fact more irrefutable than biology. I sat in my rental car outside their beige suburban home in Palo Alto, feeling like a trespasser in my own history. The house looked exactly the same. Trim hedges, 2-car garage. The wind chime I made in 8th grade still hung from the porch. Knocked. It was my mother who answered. She opened the door, squinted at me, then gasped, the sound sharp and immediate. Her hand flew to her mouth. My father appeared behind her, slower, cautious. They both stared. I said, my voice cracking, "It's me." I thought maybe my mother would reach for me, touch my face, whisper something like, "I knew." Instead, she stepped back. "What is this? Some kind of trick?" My father's voice was flat. "Is this about Nathan's wedding?" So they knew. They knew he was alive. Or rather, they thought he was me. I swallowed hard. "No," I said. "It's about the fact that he's not me, and I need your help to prove it." They let me in. Not warmly, not like a son returning, but more. Like a stranger they weren't sure they should be afraid of. We sat in the same living room where we used to open Christmas presents, where Nathan once shoved me off the couch and cracked my front tooth. "I need a DNA test," I said. My mother flinched. "From both of you," I continued. "Swab cheek. Simple." My father crossed his arms. "Why now?" "Because Nathan's not who he says he is," I said. "Because I'm Noah, and he's been living a lie for 12 years. Silence. Then my mother spoke. Quiet. Controlled. We thought something was wrong," she said. "When he came back after the crash, he was different." She blinked hard. "But he said the trauma changed him. The fire, the coma, it messed with his memory, coma. I never told them about the hospital. I never told them about the psychiatric ward. But he did. He took my trauma, my treatment, my years of healing, and made it part of his narrative." "And you believed him?" I asked. "He was our son," my mother whispered. "He had your face, your voice. He knew things." My father looked away. They had wanted to believe. I pulled out the flash drive, the confession recording, the documents. The video from the dorm, I let them watch. My mother wept. My father sat stone-faced. When it ended, he nodded once. "We'll do the test," he said. Today, it took 4 hours. We drove to a clinic downtown, paid extra for rush results. I didn't go back to the motel. I stayed in my childhood bedroom with the same faded wallpaper, the same creaky twin bed. It felt like a museum of someone else's life. The results came in the next morning. I opened the envelope with hands that wouldn't stop shaking. Probability of parentage, 99.9987%. Conclusion: the subject is the biological child of both listed parents. I was Noah Carter on paper and blood, and now so is the truth. Courtrooms smell like dust and quiet judgment. It was a small civil courtroom in Sonoma County. Lightwood. Panels, fluorescent lights that buzzed just loud enough to make you doubt your own nerves. And pool-like benches where strangers waited to see lives dismantled in real time. I sat at the defendant's table, Greg beside me, calm, focused. In front of us, a folder of documents, a flash drive, and to DNA reports. One, proving who I was. One proving who Nathan wasn't. Across the aisle sat him. Nathan, wearing my name on the docket. Wearing my face in public, and wearing a navy suit that looked custom-tailored to confidence. But for the first time, he wasn't smiling. His attorney, a slick private litigator named RWS, opened with the usual manipulation. My client, Noah Carter, is a respected community member who has spent 12 years rebuilding his life after a horrific accident. He now finds himself under attack by a disturbed individual making delusional claims of identity theft. I could feel the judgment of a woman in her 60s with sharp eyes stiffening at the phrasing. Then it was Greg's turn. He didn't go for theatrics, just facts. He played the audio recording of the bridge conversation. He submitted the will and estate transfer, highlighting the forged signature while I was hospitalized. He handed the judge the DNA report, 99.9987% match with my parents. Then he hit play on the dorm room video. Nathan's face appeared on the courtroom screen, grinning. "I'm taking your name, your life, your future." Gasps rippled through the gallery. I watched Nathan's face. Didn't flinch, but RWS stood quickly. "Objection. This recording is unverifiable. We have no date, no metadata, no witness to authenticate." Greg didn't even blink. "Your Honor, we've had the recording validated by 2 independent forensic analysts. Affidavits are in your packet, and the voice print analysis is conclusive." The judge raised one eyebrow, flipped a page, then nodded. Overruled. RWS shifted. Tactics. He called Emma to the stand. I was tense. Hadn't spoken to her since dinner. She looked fragile now, mascara already smudged, lips tight. "Miss Holloway," RWS began smoothly. "When did you first meet the defendant?" She hesitated. "I didn't." RWS blinked. "I'm sorry." She turned to the judge, her voice cracked but held. "I didn't meet the defendant. I met him," she pointed. "To Nathan, who told me he was Noah Carter. I didn't know there were two of them until 2 weeks ago. RWS looked like he'd swallowed a pin. Greg stood. Miss Holloway, do you recognize the voice in the recording? She nodded. Yes, it's Nathan. That's how he sounds when he's lying. That was the moment the room shifted from skepticism to suspicion, from disbelief to clarity. Even the judge sat back, folding her hands. Nathan Carter, she said, please rise. He did. Do you have any documentation, birth certificate, school? Records, medical files to prove you are Noah Carter? He hesitated. Your Honor, I don't carry those things daily, but I can produce not hypotheticals, she cut in. Now silence. Then Greg stood. We rest our case. The judge nodded. Once, I'll issue a written ruling within 72 hours. But let me be absolutely clear. What I've seen here today is disturbing. The evidence submitted paints a picture of calculated fraud, identity manipulation, and a total absence of remorse. Nathan sat down slowly. For the first time, he looked small. The ruling came on a Friday. A plain envelope, courthouse seal, no ceremony, no dramatic announcement. Just a folded document that decided the fate of a man who tried to steal my life and almost succeeded. Greg opened it beside me. I watched his eyes skim the page. And he looked up, and for the first time since we met, he smiled. A full injunction, he said. Restitution, title reversal, formal identity reinstated. He paused, then tapped the last paragraph. Referral to the DA for criminal prosecution. Nathan Carter, or whatever name he chose to hide behind next, had officially lost everything. The house deed was being pulled. The bank accounts frozen, the wedding canceled. Emma never returned his calls after the trial, and the court had ordered him to pay damages for fraudulent inheritance, emotional distress, and defamation to me. I was whole again, legally, but it didn't feel like victory, because the truth is, I wasn't the same person anymore. I didn't walk out of that courtroom with a parade, walked out with a manila folder, and a name that felt heavier than it used to. 3 days later, I received a letter from Nathan. Not from a lawyer, not from jail. From a hotel in Reno, a single handwritten page. Noah, you won. Guess I underestimated how badly you wanted to be. Someone I've been many things in my life, but I've never begged. And I won't start now. But if you think any of this makes you the hero, you're wrong. You're always too soft. Still are. Enjoy your hollow little victory. There was no apology, no regret, just venom. He disappeared after that. His accounts went dark. Last I heard, he was under investigation in 2 other unrelated cases, but no one had seen him. And I realized then that I didn't care. I wasn't chasing him anymore. I wasn't trying to prove anything, not to the world, not even to myself. I had my name back. I had the truth back, and that was enough. Sold. The farmhouse. Not out of spite. Not even for the money. I sold it because it never truly felt like mine. Too many ghosts. Too many lies soaked into the floorboards. With the settlement, I bought a small cabin near Lake Shasta. No vineyard, no legacy, just quiet. I changed my phone number, deleted my social media, adopted a rescue dog named Atlas Half-Blind, fully stubborn. Some mornings I sit on the porch, coffee in hand, and remind myself I survived being forgotten. I rebuilt a name that was almost stolen. But more than that, I built a self-aversion of me that doesn't need to be seen to be real. I don't know where Nathan is, and honestly, I hope I never find out, because this story isn't about him anymore. It's about what's left when the fire goes out, and who you get to become when no one else is writing your name.